Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel and video game news. You know, I probably should get the subscribe button to launch at the same time. Apparently the terms of services have updated when I'm live streaming as when I'm recording, although when I'm recording it only works half the time anyways. But there's... Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, we're back to live stream. Today is Monday, February 6th. Apparently there's 4 new cards that can be generated. You can now generate these cards even though they are forbidden under standard regulations. Which, yeah, there's not an easy way to click on these cards. You'd think, since this is in the game, that you could hyperlink to this and just click on it and go directly to these cards and craft them. Let's see, if you were going to go, say, to your deck, just to see your cards is a nightmare because you have to edit a deck basically. Then you would have to type in the name. There's like maybe, if it's 5 cards and they're all forbidden, you could do that, I guess. And then you could craft that. But there's already too much of a list here of cards that... Interesting. So, I could craft that, but they would be forbidden, so why would I? I can't craft this at all. I don't know if that's why. It seems like they're now creating a separate level here in which forbidden doesn't mean forbidden for relaxed play. But yeah, that would be definitely a nightmare to try and craft forbidden cards when you have so many other cards. Almost any player is going to have a ton of other cards that they need to craft that would actually give them benefits of having cards you could actually play in ranked, which, even though they've added a few concepts here, ranked play still is 95% of everything you focus on, which makes these legacy card packs, which are just full of cards that you couldn't possibly use in ranked because they're too old, very useless. But as long as you are playing ranked, you are getting legacy packs. Yeah, it's a bad economy, certainly. Like, if you went to a job in the United States and to pay to put gas in your car to go to that job, to pay for the car, pay for your house, pay for your rent, pay for your food, everything you're doing in the United States is in US dollars, as is legally required. And then somehow the job you were working at was trying to pay you in Confederate dollars from 200 plus years ago during the time of the revolution, useless money, and like money that is not legally allowed to be used. You would be screwed. And that's kind of the situation here, is that you're paying in gyms to hopefully get cards that are playable in ranked. Then you do your work as far as playing in ranked and winning, and then they're paying you back in legacy tickets, and that is just useless cards, guaranteed to be useless cards. Now, I guess technically you get 5 crystals every now and then, or you do dailies and you get a little bit more crystals. So through doing dailies you do slowly build up crystals, but it's really not enough. Not for the massive 10,000 plus cards that are in this collections. Honestly, instead of getting a legacy pack that gives me 2 random useless cards, I'd prefer to get one card that is more calculated, something that would be in a pool of cards you don't have even one copy of, even if they were a pool of cards that were in the legacy pool, that as long as you don't have one copy of it, because getting the duplicates is just not getting you enough crafting points, with the separated crafting points further confusing the issue. Yep, it is a very, very overly complicated, broken economy, and yet, because it's Yu-Gi-Oh!, this game has managed to thrive when arguably it really shouldn't have. Cards are king, and certainly right now with Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast and Magic the Gathering pissing people off, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has succeeded somewhat. I kind of wish, with this whole drama around them trying to change the license on Dungeons and Dragons, with that, Dungeons and Dragons people have heavily seemed to move towards Pathfinder, whereas there isn't, I think, as easy of a transition to a different card game in Magic the Gathering's case. And I wish there was, but the closest thing, I guess, would be Yu-Gi-Oh! In the West, unless you wanted to play something people have just never heard of at all. Okay. Amazon had my number, certainly, and convinced me to buy a X-Men trading cards, and this is an art book that has the 90s era cartoon of X-Men type trading cards. Not anything I think I even owned a single one of when I was a kid. I really even had any interest in it. But they've taken each card, they've made it a page on the book. The book is oddly small, and it's like they wanted to make the book just about the same size as the original cards, because I imagine that's exactly what they had to do, is that they had maybe some uncut sheets of these cards in some library, or even cut sheets of these cards, and they scanned them in. I bet they didn't have any kind of like digital originals. I'm not sure there even would have been digital originals. They may have been purely designed from, well, even in the 90s, photocopying and that technology would have existed. So there would have been something like a digital element to it, but maybe not so much a bitmap or something. But then the book is also oddly too big, so there's just like a lot of borders around it. But it's very nice. It comes with a cover that weirdly had a sticker on it, and to hold the book cover on. And when I took the sticker off and took the cover off, there was this nice poster of all the 90s era X-Men on the back of the cover. Like they sometimes do on DVDs, is you have this reversible insert equivalent, and the cover shows like Magneto, and then when you take the cover off, it's Wolverine. And then at the back there is some collection of cards, very possibly the entire collection of the cards. Now there weren't that many, so, and these were not like game cards as much as they were just baseball trading card equivalents with X-Men on it, and there's a little power ratings on them and descriptions. Not very much text at all. It is not a 100% picture book, but it is definitely a 90% picture book. But it was very, very nice, and I got it on sale for like $12. So, and even in the 90s, if you were opening packs trying to get a complete collection to even see all the cards, you definitely would have spent more than $12. So it's a nice deal there. Now, I do have a slight concern that this is definitely not something I probably should buy, because more than likely it is something that I would just put on the shelf after looking at it, and that's fine. It's fine to enjoy something if it's not too expensive, particularly like a book, and put it on the shelf, but I don't want to get too crazy with that. He was winning and still he surrendered. There, I got 100 gems, which, yeah, that's more than 40 or 5. But, yeah, getting one random card that we have multiple copies of, or 2 legacy packs here. This is my real complaint. I also ordered another, like, Batman single issue book. Whatever Happened to the Cape Crusader is the name of it, and I've heard good things about that. That hasn't been delivered yet, though. Quickly, for the accountability section before we jump into the news, I'll say I'm playing The Legend of Bumbo, and over the weekend I also uploaded some videos but didn't schedule any videos, so doing the automated parts of uploading videos or making YouTube shorts, which I also did that. Doing all of that's very easy, but you still have to go through the more difficult parts of actually scheduling these videos, otherwise they just won't show up on YouTube. So, and I need to do scheduling at least once a month, if not more often than once a month, probably on the weekend. Although maybe not on the weekend. It might actually be better if I did it right after I streamed. But yeah, as far as playing Legend of Bumbo, it's a puzzle game that's a prequel to The Binding of Isaac. I have gotten to the point where I've unlocked every character except for the Empty, which includes the Lost, which you have to take no damage for the first 3 or 4 chapters to unlock the Lost. And yeah, I've made several victories. You need to get 2 victories with each character to unlock the Empty, including the Lost, and that'll be difficult because the Lost has only half a soul heart of health, and basically no way to recover from that. But he does also have the Holy Mantle item, which allows him to take an extra hit of damage each floor, each room. Not floor, room. It's kind of funny that they changed it and refer to the chapters as chapters in The Binding of Isaac instead of as floors, but in The Legend of Bumbo. The Legend of Bumbo also weirdly goes from the bottom upward to the basement, where you start in the basement in The Binding of Isaac. It's a weird problem that I would say The Legend of Bumbo has, in that it's a puzzle game. Even comparing it just to the greed mode in The Binding of Isaac, I would think you would be better off and happier playing greed mode instead, because then you're going to have that fast-paced action, top-down twin-stick shooting in greed mode, and have a very similar experience to The Legend of Bumbo without doing the match 4 puzzle element, which arguably is the worst part of the whole experience and what they're selling it on. It would also be very weird for the game to try and have a mobile version of itself, which would lean more into that match 4 concept, but the dark imagery and themes of The Binding of Isaac that is also in The Legend of Bumbo makes it unlikely that the game would actually sell. And even Legend of Bumbo, I doubt, sold very well. Although people that did buy it and actually played it seem to have done a pretty good job. Like, the people that have actually played it seem to have gone pretty far, so well closer to 30% actually succeeded to getting to the beating the 4th chapter, compared to something like Dicey Dungeons, where it was down to 6% of people actually beat the final boss in Dicey Dungeons. You get to credits fairly quickly too, I would say, in The Legend of Bumbo. Like, very, very quickly, because the first character you play as, before you unlock anything else, has to only do a quarter of the game, just chapter 1, and you get credits at that point. Yep. Alright, well, ended that, since I can't do anything more. So, the biggest problem with The Legend of Bumbo and making footage for it, though, is that there's just incredibly nothing to say. And very often, I'm just looking at the screen and I'm just like, I'll do that, do that, do that, do that, do that, and that's just not good commentary. Really, I need to be sitting in complete silence and really thinking and observing everything. It also drains my attention span a little bit playing Legend of Bumbo, so a lot of what I did over the weekend was to play off screen to a point where I'm fairly certain I'm going to get victory, which is easy enough to do because it is turn-based and you have all the stats right in front of you. So yeah, when I'm like one hit away and about to make a match, it's pretty easy to tell and know what is whether or not I'm going to win. So I'll start episodes where I'm about to win on a fight, and then I'll go for an hour just to try to make some footage and show it off, and then I'll inevitably fail in that hour. To, if I'm doing well, I'll do 2 hours and still potentially fail. And then I'll just play for 3 or 4 hours off screen, which makes a very abridged, more edited experience than I usually do on my channel. Although that's exactly what I did with Binding of Isaac too, in many cases, is that I would show off a challenge and then fail at that challenge and then play it off screen. Particularly the challenges. I wish there were challenges in the Binding of Isaac, in Legend of Bumbo, but there aren't. Because if we did have that extra aspect of challenges, then I could unlock more items. You're slowly unlocking some items in Legend of Bumbo, but there's not anywhere as many opportunities in Legend of Bumbo to get items compared to the Binding of Isaac, so even if you do unlock something particularly powerful, you may have to go through 3 or 4 runs before you actually see it, and it's usually not even that powerful at that point, where there's a great reason to assume victory just because you've gotten newly unlocked things. It compounds the idea of items being kind of minimal in this game, in the fact that there's a gambling animation where Bumbo puts the coin in a slot machine, and it has just a decreasing chance of winning. Like, you're pretty much guaranteed a victory the first time you unlock an item, but then there's a high increasing chance that you will lose, which would just push you into making more and more runs all the way to the end. And there's no fast way. There's no fast run, really. On top of that, they have this like last goal, I would say, in which you're trying to get 45 coins plus, or over 45 coins for each character, but the game gets harder and you start getting fewer and fewer coins. So just about the time you would be good enough to potentially have 45 coins at the end of a run, the game will get harder and reduce the amount of coins you get, and you would have to compensate for that. And that's basically the only way I've figured out that you could compensate for that, is to have the trapdoor and have a way to charge the trapdoor 2-3 times in the final boss battle. Because using the trapdoor in the final boss battle, unlike the Binding of Isaac, doesn't take you to a glitch room or something else. It just gives you 10 coins at that point. So yeah, it'll definitely be a shorter series. It's not going to be the 100+ episodes that I did with the original Binding of Isaac when I started my channel. It's not going to be me basically rambling and talking about anything. There definitely was some different type of content back then, and not something that I think I would feel comfortable going back to. What in the world just happened there? How did I send this to the graveyard and not... Oh, I see what I did. I sent this to the graveyard. I should have sent something else instead. Because I had already activated that, or tried to activate it and canceled it. Yeah, I am slightly concerned though that I'll spend the rest of this week playing The Legend of Bumbo and only actively have made 4 or 5 episodes. But I'm also not hitting any major difficulty spike. I was hitting one difficulty spike, and I can call it a spike now, early on, where I was really struggling to win with one character, but once you pulled that off once, it opened up some other pathways. And now later in the game, it is a fairly wide experience in which it seems like you could win with any character and potentially unlock more items for other characters. It's not particularly explained well, but it does definitely seem like you're slowly improving the process and improving your chances. Put that up here. And otherwise, did I do anything? Not really. Still playing my favorite mobile game, Destiny Child, with lewd waifus in it. Just trying to get that done, and then still playing the Goblins mining game for no reason. I guess at level 50 of 100, which probably means nothing. It probably would take 2 to 4 years, if not an eternity, because of the way that goes, to get to the end of that content. And by the time I did get close to being at the end of that content, I would suspect they would throw more content at you. Okay. See if we can play this backwards. Add this to the hand. Activate this. Add this to the graveyard. Then toss this one because that wouldn't activate a second time. Now activate this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't think I got around to watching any Netflix over the weekend. Mostly I probably just slept more than anything. Oh, this is crazy to do this, but whatever. That one would have let me summon it for free. See, had I used that to summon the other character for free, I could have summoned this, and then I could have made better progress. And actually gotten rid of this blue eyes. Yep. So I guess for the accountability section I don't have anything else to say, and so let's start to work towards the news, I guess. It looks like on my schedule everything's going to be somewhat settled down at this point, so for the most part going to be back to normal, although my sleep schedule is still a mess. Alright. Summon that. Summon that. Summon that. Summon that. What I want to do is have this guy pointing to this, which I don't think I have a choice anyways. And unless he can counter this, I can banish that blue eyes. There definitely is a problem with like positioning on this in this game. Is a lot of people just surrendering as soon as they see their position is lost. It's like professional chess players where people are just surrendering on the 4th or 5th turn, which is just like no reason to play that way. It's not fun. Fourth episode of HBO's Last of Us had its highest ratings yet, according to Video Games Chronicles, which I'll leave it at that. Let's see. Sign says they have a release date for the reimagining of Myst on iOS. I don't know if they're really selling it as the reimagining of Myst, or if they're just calling it Myst. This little animated GIF doesn't do very good service to Myst. It would be hard to tell which version of Myst this is. This doesn't quite feel like real Myst, but it doesn't also kind of feel like the latest remaster. Hmm. Let's see. Lastly, there's a free entry to Mist Island for the first time in science history. The entirety of Mist Island is accessible for free to explore without a time limit. Players who want to explore further can unlock the Ages of Mist with a one-time in-app purchase. Which I don't even know what that means. Like, what is the reimagining of Mist? It seems almost like, looking at this GIF, there's going to be a real Mist version of Mist Island where you can wander around and look, but nothing's going to be interactable. And then the actual game is going to be closer to some of the earlier versions of it. So yeah, I'm very confused there. As far as just... Let's see, what have they tweeted last time? January 29th, January 30th? Are these not in chronological order? So yeah. I don't even know what that means. But if anything, I would say it probably highlights the old school nature of Cyan in the first place, that they're even trying to target having a game on Apple products for as little as gaming occurs on Apple products these days. Yes, the Apple II may have been the first place where Myst was created with the HyperCard programming language, but just because you have that tradition doesn't mean anything. No DOS-based game that's been remade, like Doom ran in DOS. At no point have people tried to remake the 2016 remake of Doom so that it runs in DOS without all the Windows and DirectX built-in improvements. Moving on, Take-Two is planning on layoffs as part of a $50 million cost reduction program. The program will primarily focus on corporate and publishing functions, which, yeah, that is an amazing way to spin layoffs, certainly, to say, oh, we're just firing the rich management. I think it was Intel that also basically froze the pay raise of a lot of its CEOs and upper management at higher rates than it reduced the pay raises or the bonuses for the lowest level employees. But they did both too, so it's not like the lowest level employees at Intel were unscathed. Now I question what the lowest level of employee at Intel really is making anyways. It's probably somewhere around $80,000, I would guess, minimum, to work for Intel, unless you're just some kind of extremely low customer service person, which, yeah, I guess those people might be getting screwed quite a bit. But yeah, I'd have to bring up a full list of just what Take-Two particularly has made and published to prevent myself from confusing it with 2K. But it seems like the fashion was to get into publishing in the past 5 or 6 years because people have no new ideas to make their own games, or no skill to make their own games, and just wanted to profit off the effort of others. Which, yeah, it would be nice if there was a way in any economic system to say, well, you did well and you get rewarded for doing well, but that doesn't allow you to then just mooch or become a parasite off of other people's potential success and make it more difficult for other people to succeed, which is basically what publishing is that you become... Gearbox is a great example. Gearbox became fairly successful with Borderlands, and then over about a 10-year period they introduced Gearbox Publishing so that they could then make more money off the efforts of other people, and for the games they published, none of which were particularly good, it almost certainly hurt those developers more than it helped them. And I guess the way you would address that is you would just have kind of a grant system, or you would have perhaps a taxation system that taxes better success on companies higher. Yeah. But as far as Take-Two, yeah. Take-Two owns Rockstar and 2K Games. So I guess that's where more of my confusion is coming from. So GTA obviously didn't go well, although was it even a first party title that was, as far as the GTA remakes? GTA Online is still working. You could otherwise think of most of the 2K games are sports games that they tend to make money, but they're not good games and they're full of microtransactions. Yep. So yeah, it definitely looks like there is a case where it's just everybody is laying off everybody now because they can get away with it. YouTube's official blog put out this 3 creator economy trends to watch in 2023. So what they're going to push, creator driven content that is taking over the TV screen. So they're saying more and more people are watching creator driven content instead of scripted content, or in that case like regular TV shows on TV, which okay, maybe there's some truth to that. Okay, let's see if we can go ahead and do this. The second thing is long form and short form creativity are more powerful together. That's something I think I'm definitely failing with, in that I'm making just completely different type of product in my short form videos, and sadly it's succeeding. But there's still no way in my mind that I could take a 2-hour experience, or even an 1-hour experience playing The Legend of Bumbo, for instance, and find a minute in that content that I could script down into a short form. And even if I was going to do that, it probably would take me over an hour to do it. I did have some thoughts of rewriting my wrap-up phrase that I say at the end of every stream, but I don't know if too many people even hear it, and it's so built into my head anyways. It's hard to relearn something when the brain is just completely on autopilot. And then the third trend is for Gen Z creators are the new content studios, which I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Yep, very consistently these blogs come off as just like kind of completely out of touch nonsense written by people that don't make YouTube content, don't consume YouTube content, and pretending like they know what's going on. That's the problem when you make a website that is mostly run by an unknowable, ununderstandable algorithm. And I guess like most companies, they're not telling you what the truth is, they're telling you what they want you to hear. Alright, going through Video Games Chronicles articles. Last of Us has been delayed on PC. Xbox Crossfire is being shut down. Man, this is same old, same old. I still didn't look at the programming as to why it repeats so much. It's probably something stupid that I've done. We talked about Resident Evil 4 remake footage. Yep. So I don't need to cover that again. They have the final poster for the Super Mario Brothers movie. Which, okay. Dragon Age Dreadwolf gameplay leaks showing a God of War style combat. Interesting. If that's the way they go with it, then that potentially makes a game like Dragon Age Dreadwolf more interesting for me to play compared to a turn-based combat. Although I don't know why you would call this, if this is the video they're talking about, I don't know why you would call this God of War more than a like just Dark Souls style combat. Is this what God of War looks like and plays like now? Because God of War used to be butt mashing combos and high action. This isn't dodge rolling and drinking from health refilling potions like Dark Souls, but definitely would put that more in the phrase of Dark Souls. Is it the running and kicking animation here that makes it God of War like? Yeah, apparently that's how God of War 2018 plays. Interesting. It's surprising. There definitely are some modern games I just haven't gotten around to play, particularly if they've been PlayStation exclusives or console exclusives. But also I just haven't purchased and played new games at full price. I'm a little shocked on that. I always made the assumption that the God of War reboot still had a lot of button mashing and slashing. Now, I'm not particularly a fan of button mashing anyway, so it's not a big problem for them to kind of get away from that. The button mashing in some instances is great, but I think mostly that's like when you're playing Bayonetta and there are actually combos and you can actually get good at it. Whereas I'd say the old God of War games probably were a lot more around just hitting the button hundreds of times for no good reason. That is potentially one thing about this push towards being more accessible and getting rid of button mashing and potentially having games where you can just hold down a button instead of mashing it multiple times is beneficial for people like me who have a little bit of arthritis in their hand. That being said, nothing really beats the feeling though of having to mash the button quite a bit to kill a large amount of enemies and really feel as much in the action as possible, compared to a lot of modern games where you're pushing a button here and there, but mostly it's on rails or you're just not really interacting with things at all. Moving on, a new Wulong demo is coming to PC and consoles this month. Microsoft is reportedly expecting the UK to oppose its Activision Blizzard deal. A huge Tekken 8 breakdown stream confirms Nina in a closed alpha test. Yep, I guess Tekken 18 and Street Fighter 6 or whatever the most recent Street Fighter is. I guess they're both competing against each other as far as these are the new games that are in development, and so they have to compete on that level. It is a little weird that your competition is really just one or two other fighting games. This YouTube video is super long. It's 36 minutes. Mostly of people facing the screen. Very Japanese style depiction. Like two people sitting in front of a green screen, showing things off. I would argue maybe the Japanese style of just not doing presentations there is just not as polished as it should be, but it's not too far off from the highly polished trailers that are overly polished in the West, like the Xbox Direct depictions, where it looked like they had 4K cameras and professional lighting to have two people stand in front of their office and overlook their cubicles just to say the same thing. And you tend to get a lot more game footage in the cheaper, low-effort depictions. And inherently, I imagine the offices in Japan are really small, where the offices in the West are these giant offices with big open floor plans. I really don't have anything to say with around Tekken 8 though. Experimental Pi, by the way, has a new, more widescreen. I should really just bring it up. Let's see. Experimental Pi. We'll do that. And do that. And let's go ahead and activate this. This may be a mistake, but whatever. It definitely seems like just doing things gets you pretty far. You don't even really have to do the right thing, you just have to do something, and it tends to scare away half your players. Let's see, this is going to send one to the grave. Alright, so Experimental Pi has now this Pi Boy XRS kit, which turns the whole idea on its side and gets away from the idea of making a Game Boy. Now, arguably, you're not getting the 6-button front screen that you would have here with the Pi Boy DMG. This is, I think, the newer version of this, because at one point it definitely was 4 buttons only. So if you really want something that feels like a Game Boy, you do this. If you want something that feels more like a DS, you would do this. Both are fairly expensive devices, considering you have to add a Raspberry Pi to it anyways, and at the moment I don't know if I would recommend either one, because even though they've said that there isn't going to be a new Raspberry Pi, I think, this year, it probably does set up for whatever the Raspberry Pi 5 to be a pretty major update. Now, at a certain level, I would also say that the Raspberry Pi is running into this weird split between people who it's running into this weird split between people who want to use it for other projects that don't require that much resources and people who want to do RetroPie and play video games on it. And even in this case, let's see if we can get into more details and show it off. This is a full Raspberry Pi being in the back of it, so it's a pretty chunky, thick device, and it's not using the compute module, which could have made this fairly thinner, although it does have like 2 batteries on either side, so you're going to have some decent battery life on it too. But then there's like a passive radiator cooling, and probably room for a fan if you wanted to add a fan, although maybe not. And then it's just like a fake Game Boy in the molding. Nothing comes in and out, which is fine. Let's see. More cooling on the bottom. Micro HDMI connector so you can play on your TV. Audio out. A USB to plug in a controller to it. It's not a terrible product, but so this one, let's look at the top of this one. Yep. This is using a full-size Pi 2, which they had made once. They'd used the Pi 0, and at this point they are giving up on that idea completely and just using a full-size Pi, because the compute modules and the Pi 0 both extremely rare. Of course, that does mean you're just getting a fake Game Boy cartridge in the back again, but that's it. I still think if you are going to have some nostalgia, there is an argument to going with something like this. That being said, I think this version, which is slightly newer, yeah, it does have an HDMI out on one side and an LCD brightness dial on the other, and then a USB-C, and then a volume dial, and then HDMI. So it's basically the same things. Yeah. Basically the same two products, but in different form factors. And I think the wide form factor definitely wins out. That's what the Switch is, and even on the Switch, where those Joy-Cons are fairly wide apart, they're not that wide apart. Yep. If I was starting all over again, I would potentially build this. But I think for my personal journey, having already broken the earlier version of this through programming somehow, the circuitry short-circuited because of bad programming. That was weird. Like, in my own personal journey, I don't think I would build either one of these. And if I am going to try to put some more effort into emulation projects for my own personal use, because I can't really stream it on YouTube, I would probably just try to build a hard drive into Windows itself, or the Steam Deck, which, yeah, you have to compare this price. Basically, I'm just shopping at the moment, though. Compare $150 to $250, and you've got the mid-tier Steam Deck at that point. And at that, you are not having to spend potentially another $50 on the Raspberry Pi itself. So yeah, the Steam Deck basically blows the idea of Raspberry Pis in a portable form factor out of the water. Plus, the Steam Deck has the ability to play more modern games. So yeah. And then if I was going to think about that, then I probably would think about, do I want to buy this first generation Steam Deck? I would buy a first generation Steam Deck used if it was really cheap, or refurbished if it was really used. Cheap. Or I would wait for the second generation. I don't think they've come out and said that the second generation of Steam Deck is probably not going to be much more of an improvement, but the improvements in it may be in things like battery life and cooling and just more stability, stable hardware design. Although people have had Steam Decks for 6 months to a year now, and I haven't seen anybody make any kind of clickbait video saying, well, this broke, this burnt out, or anything like that. If anything, I think most Steam Deck people that were YouTubers probably just put it away on the shelf and forgot about it. Speaking of YouTubers, it looks like PewDiePie is expecting a baby, or his girlfriend, wife, whatever. I think his wife, yeah, they got married, is expecting a baby, which, okay. Them living in Japan and having a baby, it would be interesting to see if that gives natural born Japanese citizenship to the baby. Probably not, because yeah, I think it would probably still inherit Swedish citizenship from PewDiePie and maybe American citizenship from America. I don't know if there's really a great reason to have American citizenship. It's kind of the hardest one to have dual citizenship with. But yeah, that's more YouTube related, and it didn't really even seem like it's going viral. Which is probably a good sign for YouTube too, is that if a bunch of PewDiePie fans did go crazy just because they announced a baby, although that may have also been just clickbait too, so I didn't watch the video. That's how uninterested I was in it. So many YouTubers have tried to announce pregnancies and then shift their channel drastically to be around pregnancy. Even Adafruit, with Lady Ada having a baby recently, is now shifting her focus somewhat in the projects and hack projects and maker projects into baby toys, which is probably something she would have never done had she not had a baby. Moving on with the news, Assassin's Creed Valhalla has won its first video game soundtrack, the first video game soundtrack Grammy. This is where these awards ceremonies are trying to keep their relevancy, so they're now deigning to allow video games that they've been ignoring for decades. Grammys in particular could have been giving out musical score soundtracks for video games as early as the Atari days, first generation games. You could have had a category and said, well, of all the 8-bit music out there, which is its own wild style, you could have at the very least had some Grammy you were giving, even if you weren't showing it in the real Grammys and you were just handing it out during the commercials. But all of these award shows are just incredibly snobbish, run by incredibly old people who are probably upset that even like records and vinyls aren't the way Grammys are made. I mean, you only have to look at their award to see how old-fashioned they are in their thinking, that they're giving away a gramophone with vinyl record music as their award. But now, as the Grammys are getting viewed by fewer and fewer people, as there are fewer and fewer young people watching TV in general, they're desperate for new viewerships. And then it further complicates the issue. It's just, I don't have any real skill around music. I'm pretty much completely tone deaf, so I can't even evaluate whether Assassin's Creed Valhalla deserved the Grammy compared to, well, pretty much any other number of people that could have potentially deserved a Grammy for a soundtrack on their game. The only soundtrack in a game I've ever even paid any attention to and liked was the soundtrack of The Cat Lady, and that was just, I think, a really good fit for the type of game it was. And those were songs that were either like very specifically made for that game, or songs that were very specifically selected. What you tend not to see or hear is a lot of pre-made songs that would be on the radio anyways, showing up in video games, and then licensing, unless it's like a karaoke game or a Let's Dance game or something like that. The bigger statement recently has been around the core soundtrack around Doom Eternal. That's been the only real controversy or newsworthy thing to talk about as far as soundtracks anyways. Okay. Send that. Video game music in particular, if I will continue here and have actually something to say, is just in a very weird position compared to any other soundtrack anyways. Like, people don't listen to full soundtracks. They don't listen to every song. The idea of wasting your time listening to the B-side songs, the bad songs, the instrumental versions of songs that don't have the lyrics in them, like, all those concepts are out the window, and nobody's gonna buy a soundtrack just because it has 12 songs. You could easily sell a soundtrack to add 6 songs on it and nobody would complain. Well, I wouldn't. I expect too many people to complain, at least. Like, even having just 3, maybe 4 really good songs on a soundtrack is enough. And like, my only experience as far as listening to soundtracks is Weird Al CDs, and yeah, about half of the songs on Weird Al CDs are not things that would ever play on the radio or that you would particularly listen to otherwise, or even hear if you went and saw them in concert. Like the polkas and things. Those songs tend to be pretty awful filler songs. They're not terrible, but they're not as good as the other songs on a Weird Al CD. And then you compound that issue with video game soundtracks where half of the songs are just going to be low rumble, a little bit of music playing in the background. Even in The Legend of Bumbo, they have not enough songs, and they are heavy metal songs that are a little too intense for their own good. So at some point I just turned down the audio on it, because it was like you're spending 2 hours potentially playing a match 4 game and you're just hearing this heavy metal music in the background that's not changing enough. If anything, I think that there's probably some room for multiple games to share the same background music and almost have like a radio style, Spotify playlist style experience to it, because you're definitely not selling a game by its soundtrack. Nobody's going to care about that. But yeah, to wrap up the story, Dawn of Ragnarok DLC's score beat out 4 other nominees. What were the other nominees? Let's see. Apparently last year 8-bit band, a 60 to 65 member jazz pop orchestra, won a Grammy for best arrangement. instrumental a cappella for its cover of Metal Knight's Revenge, which was from Kirby Superstar 1996 Super NES. So even in that, the Grammys are admitting that as early as 1996 they could have been giving away Grammys. I'd like to see the competition here as far as what the other nominees were, but they're not mentioning it, so whatever. Moving on. Still going through Video Games Chronicle, and I think we can probably stop playing at this point as far as Yu-Gi-Oh! Too, so I can just focus on the news. While there probably isn't a lot of news this Monday, I bet there is a lot of games that came out. I didn't even see the warning that I was going to get demoted. Well. Yep. We've got all that done. Everything else. So now is the time to just stop on all of that. And then Duel Pass is making bits of progress here. Getting more crafting points. Tiny amounts of crafting points too. Even in the Legend of Bumbo, where you get between 1 and 3 coins for clearing each room, it's weird because you can't do anything with 1 coin. So it's kind of pointless to have a coin that when nothing is of a value. Like pennies are pretty much worthless in the United States for the same reason. Let's see if we've got the blur enabled now. Yeah, I do suspect we will end up seeing a lot of games coming out over the weekend. Sega and Nier's Yoko Taro are reportedly announcing a new mobile game this week. Teaser for a 404 game reset was accidentally posted earlier, then removed. Which I guess it could be anything. I don't know if I believe that there's going to be yet another Nier game, and even if it was, it would just be another Nier Automata mobile game, which I think there's been at least 2 of those already, and while they weren't awful, they're also not necessary. It's arguable whether you even need to play the original Nier game, or if you can just start with Nier Automata and be happy with that. Let's see. Episode 5 of Last of Us will be available 2 days earlier. Apex Legends Season 6 is adding Team Deathmatch and sunsetting arenas, which it's also getting a persistent limited time mode playlist and improved first time player experience. It seems like a drastic change, certainly, to add Deathmatch 16 seasons in, which really should have probably had Team Deathmatch at launch, and then getting rid of arenas. Now, arguably, maybe arenas were the stand-in replacement for Team Deathmatch, and so this is them just tweaking arenas in a different way. Apex Legends still popular enough, I guess, to report on, but if you're up to 16 seasons, it's probably pretty old. Let's see. Apex Legends Season 16 features remastered Legend classes with new perks, which, yeah, they're seemingly having to add more content to keep people playing. Is this your standard collection of Apex Legend characters? I couldn't even tell them out of a lineup. If you put Apex Legends characters next to Overwatch characters next to several other of those types of games side by side, I would not be able to pick out who's from which game. They're also generic. UK retailer Tesco is selling half-price Switch consoles and games, including a standard Switch for £115 and the OLED model for £152. I imagine you couldn't import this. Right now, though, everything is really expensive in the UK, so that might be why things are going on sale. It also might be that Tesco's in trouble. If Tesco is in trouble, then the UK economy is pretty much in trouble. But yeah, I seriously doubt you could buy this version and import it to the United States or another country easily. And even if you did, it might be somewhat region locked in its model, or you might lose out on warranties at least. Sony publishes a PlayStation VR 2 Ultimate FAQ ahead of this month's launch. I guess you could look at this Video Games Chronicle article to get to that FAQ article, or just Google it if you wanted to see it. More and more, I have the feeling that these giant blinders in front of VR are the main problem with VR, and that until we can get to a point where you can just put what is the equivalent of a band in front of your eyes and that be the VR, I don't think VR would ever succeed. But even if you did put a band in front of it, you wouldn't be blocking out enough light, normally speaking. Yeah, I'd almost want like inflatable ballasts at the front, at the top and bottom of a band, and then have a way to inflate it directly against your face and block out all the light on a very thin band, and then deflate it and be able to look up and down and see where I'm walking if I'm walking around, or look up if I need to look up and see people. Although if you have these inside out cameras on them, you kind of don't even need that much. There is kind of an argument, if we were going to be bombarded with a bunch of viruses and germs, that if you needed to literally protect your eyes from absorbing things, which eyes don't absorb much more than skin do, but like if you were just super germophobic, looking at a camera pointing in front of your face through VR goggles is kind of a sci-fi possibility. Although at a certain point, if there are that many germs around, probably would need just a whole helmet, like a scuba diver helmet, around your head. Controllers. I think these controllers are fine. Arguably, I don't know if these controllers need the full circular aspect here. Like, I think on the outward swing, a protector, so you don't bash your hand, might be viable, but on an upward swing, if you're hitting something, that's a little less likely to happen, and an inward swing, it's less likely to happen, because if you're swinging inward, you're just bumping into your own body. So I could see cutting it off and just having a slight edge here instead of a full ring, but there might be some technology in this full ring too. But it definitely seems a little too big. It definitely feels like you would want to be able to collapse these controllers better. You'd also like to be able to snap them together and potentially connect them to the cord that's going to be hanging off the back of your VR headset anyways for travel. This device itself is way too expensive, so it basically demands a expensive carrying case on top of it. Moving on, Disney Dreamlight Valley's third major update launches next week. I'm surprised it's only its third. I would have thought it was more. A Festival of Friendship adds Maribel from Encanto and Olaf from Frozen as new characters. Seems like if you were going to add Olaf, you would have probably wanted to do that around December and Christmas time. Maribel from Encanto, I guess, maybe more into the spring thought in her color palette. I would particularly enjoy if I could follow somebody who's really playing Disney Dreamlight Valley, but I don't really have a way of doing that. I would say the best thing I could probably do is see if I can Google this and see if we have it on Steam. Is it even on Steam? Yes, it is. So, overwhelmingly positive in the last 30 days as far as Streamlight Valley. Online now, there's 2,441, a peak of 2,969, all-time peak of 14,000, and 41,000 followers. It is technically being sold as early access, and then Microsoft PlayFab third-party account and third-party end-user license agreement. So big extra requirements just to play on Steam. But what you run into here as far as SteamDB telling you how many people are playing, 2,000 sounds like a small number, but it probably isn't that small of a number, really. With the exception of like Call of Duty games, any one day, even having 3,000 people. Remember, today is Monday, most people would be at work. So this is, I would take pretty good numbers. Honestly, if I saw even an active community of like 500 people per day on a smaller game like this, I'd be fairly happy with that. This game also is not a multiplayer game in any way. It's single player only. So there is no real absolute need to have a lot of people playing, other than the fact that there's a Ultimate Edition DLC, which would bump this price up, and then there's in-app purchases, which makes it really questionable whether I'd want to play this game. What would really help here is if like Valve bought Gameloft as a developer in particular, and that would allow you to potentially get a mobile version of this game when you bought the Steam version of the game. Also, Gameloft has several games here that if they don't have mobile versions, definitely look like they could have mobile versions. Oregon Trail, yeah. Here's yet another game I've missed somewhere. I've been looking to find something that would do the Oregon Trail, but do it well. I don't know if anybody really owns the copyright rights to the Oregon Trail. And the fact that I've missed one here that actually looks like the game we all potentially have nostalgia for, people my age have nostalgia for. This is totally not that game. This is a modern take on it. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says a special edition Stellar Shift controller has seemingly been leaked. It's a color shifting controller, will reportedly launch on Valentine's Day. Yeah, Valentine's Day is coming up, or Valentine's Day. But as far as video games are connected and concerned, nothing really happens around Valentine's Day. There's no sales or anything like that. The Steam Next Fest went live. It's live now. It runs until February the 13th. The Steam's YouTube channel has some kind of video that was live here. You can see it's live now, and it's been going for a couple hours. Although it seems like the first hour was literally just nothing on their screens. And it seems to me this is really just a lot of people submitted videos and they've got some people talking to camera. I don't know if these are supposed to be people that work at Valve. They kind of look like YouTubers though, more, or Twitch streamers. Yeah, here you have a Twitch streamer or YouTuber for sure, because it's a virtual anime girl character. That's an interesting twist, certainly, is that, hey, let's find a select collection of streamers that we can trust, and let's. Uh, is this a Darkest Dungeon 2? Doesn't. I don't think so. It kind of looks like it, though. Yeah, it looks like there might be either a spin off Darkest Dungeon game or Darkest Dungeon 2 game they're showing off. Unless they're showing a demo for Darkest Dungeon 1 for some reason, or some DLC for Darkest Dungeon. Yep. If it finally takes Valve to be the one to admit that streamers can be your best ambassador to promote and get people hyped about new games, that would be nice. Somebody needs to do that. And Valve in particular only has Gabe Newell to try it out if you're trying to do something that looks kind of professional, and Gabe Newell's not really that professional looking anyways. So they just don't have any kind of mascot employees or anything that have a public facing appearance. So why not just bring in presenters or streamers to talk about demos? That being said, I do have to say I hate the idea of the Steam Next Fest, of just hyping people to play demos for games that won't be out for a very long time when there's plenty of games on Steam to play now. So if you're going to do something like that, you probably need to make a lot of comparisons and a lot of comments as around, this is the second game from this developer, go play their first game now, and then check out the demo, or check out the demo then play their first game. Valve and Steam in particular need to work very hard to convince people to play older games, since the vast majority of their catalog is older products. There's definitely a different feeling around buying old games compared to buying groceries, for instance, eggs or toilet paper, or things that were invented hundreds of years ago or evolved millions of years ago, in the case of eggs. So, but they are just a natural commodity that people constantly consume, whereas video games are luxury, and there has been this promotion of, if it's new it's great, but if it's 2 months old it's garbage. If it's out of that 6 weeks launch window, it's garbage. And they need to get away from that. Steam in particular needs to get away from that, because they have a lot of back catalog that they could sell to a lot of people. And people, I think gamers in particular, do get hyped on the idea of having a lot of opportunity to play older games. And new kids are getting PCs and playing and being able to play older games too. Moving on, now we're at the Gamatsu articles. Sons of the Forest shifts to early access launch instead of just a full launch. Atelier Ryza 3 has a opening movie. Atelier Ryza 3 Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key has an opening movie if you want to check this out. I heavily suspect that this will be the last Atelier Ryza game, as it were. I think they're going to age out these characters, and maybe we'll see the characters from Atelier Ryza 3 in the next Atelier series, but I think they'll move in a different direction. Although, it's totally up to the creators. They could just focus on this character and make her the new mascot of the Atelier series, and can continue to make tons of Atelier Ryza series and stop making some of the other Atelier games. Let's see. Wulong Fallen Dynasty demo launches February 24th. Marvelous is going to publish Toho Shinsekai Longing for the Alternate World for PS4, PS5, Switch, and PC worldwide. Which, okay, it's another Toho game. Really, at this point, hearing that a game is in the Toho universe really just has turned me 100% against it because there's too many of them. It's overwhelming. Let's see. Desert de Automate announcements roundup. I assume this was a presentation of several Automate visual novels. Let's see. Hakoki Shinkai Manyu no Shou. And then another Hakoki Sweet School Life game for Switch. Then Caller X Malice for Switch. Seems like all of these games are coming to Switch, or specifically. Which, yeah, that is certainly the value in Japan in particular, is that you can make a good argument to sell a visual novel on the Switch better than putting it on a PlayStation, which is, it's definitely overkill to be playing a visual novel on a PlayStation 5. Super Deformed SD Shin Kamen Rider Rumble launches April 27th in Asia, 1 month after the Japanese release. I suspect that means that there has not been an announcement for it to come worldwide, which that's not super surprising that a Kamen Rider game wouldn't come worldwide, since Kamen Rider is not particularly well known in the worldwide. A Crystar Rise Steamfest Next demo launches February 6th, according to Gamatsu. Tekken 8 new gameplay mechanics introduction and Nina Williams reveal. One thing I will say is, when you look at like this character and this character, they're both in very dark clothing and just not very colorful or interesting. It'd be kind of hard to be certain if both of these characters were fighting each other on screen. Who is who? The faces are different and the hairstyles are slightly different, but not by that much. And even this lady, having blonde hair, still has just like this dark blue jacket and gold bangles, and I don't know how the gun really would play out in a fighting game. Sega and Yokotaro announce RPG game 404 game re:set for iOS and Android on February 10th. It has a naming scheme almost like what is it? Neon Genesis Evangelion's movies and remakes. Now, noticeably though, looking at this teaser trailer, it doesn't seem like this is in the near universe. If it is, it's being set at a time frame like well before the apocalypse happened in the near universe, so it'd have probably very little connection to the near universe. Just seeing a lot of Sega things and a lot of teaser images. From the looks of it, looking at this teaser skipping around, what I suspect is happening here, or what this game would be, is some kind of augmented reality Pokemon Go type game, because there's a heavy emphasis here of Sega being highlighted on everything and multiple buildings in multiple places. So yeah, it feels like it is probably something like a Pokemon Go, or the one before Pokemon Go that was very popular. That game, it might be closer to that one, unless there's just a thought here that there's some tracking element here, or hacking concept here. Of course, the teaser trailer is not showing you anything. Moving on, Battlegun Saturn Tribute Boosted has been announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. The Crown of Wu launches March 24th on the PlayStation 5, PS4, PC, and then later on the Xbox Series and Xbox One. Now, when I come to one of these stories and just read the headline and then move on, I could potentially make a 20-second YouTube short around that and just read the headlines. And then that would at least be me adding my own voice to a YouTube short. But I would have to pay somebody. I'd have to be making enough money to afford to hire a full-time employee to cut these live streams up in such a way to make a bunch of shorts, which, yeah, the danger of potentially needing to make a second take is super high. So I'd probably have to pay somebody to do the visuals multiple times, and then just cut my voice over a redone visual. It would be a lot of polish and a lot of work to make a YouTube short just to read a headline, but probably would work if I was being funded like Giant Bomb or some other site, some mainstream video game journalist site. I definitely could see having an employee do that. Moving on, Ender Lily's Quietest of the Nights sales top 1 million. Of course, that would still probably make a lot of work for me because I'd probably have to redo a lot of the voices when I stutter or say moving on or something. I would need to get a full pause, and this is behind the scenes video production. I'd have to do a full pause so that there could be an edit. Then I would have to read the headline perfectly. Then I would have to do a full pause so there would be another edit there. And if you don't get that clean, if there's a stutter, noise, background sound noise, anything like that, then you'd have to do it again. And it probably would behoove you, if you were going to do that, to say the headline multiple times. And certainly in the stream, it wouldn't make any sense for me to go, Ender Lily's Quietest of Night sales top 1 million. Ender Lily's Quietest of the Night sales top 1 million. Ender Lily's Quietest of the Night sales top 1 million. Just doing that 3 times in a row. So there's potentially 3 different recordings that you could pick from. That doesn't work in a live stream at all. That people would very quickly be annoyed by that. But that would be what you would have to do if you were going to just try to make YouTube shorts around this. I don't know what Ender Lily's Quietest of the Night is. I guess it's an action side-scrolling Metroidvania game, but by the looks of this image here, it's hard to tell what the game is. It is on my wish list, so I have seen it before. But yeah, the screenshots here, way better. That would also be a question if I was going to try to make YouTube shorts, is why would I make a YouTube short covering the headline of Gamatsu like this when you could probably get more visual detail by doing this and showing that. Moving on, Everspace 2 launches on April 6th for PC and this summer for PS5 and Xbox Series. A superhero turn-based strategy game called Capes adds a PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch versions. The PC demo is available today. This is kind of an interesting art style. It's kind of feels almost like the, I don't want to say Johnny Quest art style. What was the parody of Johnny Quest that they did on Cartoon Network for a very long time and then never finished it anyways? Yeah, I can't remember the name of that show with Brock in it. And I could be misremembering what that show even looks like. This is a nice art style though, kind of, you might call it comic booky, sharp edges, sharp angles. It definitely feels unique. Although when you actually look at these screenshots, that's not really what you're seeing most of the time because it is just an XCOM game. Positional placement strategy games, which at this point we have gotten way too many XCOM clones positional placement games for my liking. Apparently Blood Bowl 3 has been announced and has an overview trailer. That gives me a nice excuse to probably play Blood Bowl 1 and 2, which I think I own at least one, if not two. I know it's on my wish list at the very least. When was this announced? Let's see. It was due out on February 23rd. So, yeah. Apparently this was announced and I missed it, or it was just announced. I'll put that on the fall list. I guess the question here would also be, could we... They're saying it's similar to Carcassonne, which that's a mistake. This developer doesn't seem to be really the same developer. Well, actually, this is the publisher. Well, it says it's the developer. Blood Bowl 2 Legendary Edition here. So, Blood Bowl 2. Guess we should put that on the wish list. I think it's relative enough. I don't know if maybe I was thinking because of the online PvP or maybe the DLC. There might be a reason why I wouldn't want it. Now it says this is similar to Ticket to Ride in Carcassonne, which is completely wrong. Comparisons, unless there's something I don't understand here. And why did Cyanide Studio come up that time when I clicked on it? Let's see, Blood Bowl 2. See if we can find Blood Bowl 1 under this whole list. Blood Bowl 1 may not be available on Steam. Guess the question you would do here is highlight the text. Come on, highlight the text. Go forward, highlight this text, copy, go back. Get rid of this, paste this, search. Blood Bowl 3, Blood Bowl, Chaos Edition. Yep. So yeah, I never even bought the first game. Yep. So that would give me an excuse. This game has been as low as $2.24. And had I seen it at that price, I probably would have gotten it. So yeah, that puts me in a unique position where, yeah, I could try and cover all these games. I wouldn't probably play them very much, or even excite people who were covering the game, but it really is one of more of those games where if somebody was to gift me Blood Bowl 1, or 2, or 3, I'd like to play them in order, so 1, or 1 and 2, or 1, 2, and 3, I would cover it, but I'm also have to hold myself a little bit back to say I'm not so enthusiastic around this series that I would buy the Blood Bowl 3 at full price for myself. Moving on, Leap launches March first for the PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, and PC. I don't know why they are separating the PlayStations from the modern consoles like that. I guess sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Now, this is L period, E period, A period, P period. There's another game that had a similar name where you're running around and jumping, and there really wasn't much of a game around it. You were just running around sort of asset flipped environments and collecting energy orbs. This looks more like it's running, gunning, shooting. This has been out for a while, and it's barely even average. Can't remember the other name of the game. Valley. Yeah, this is it. And in Valley you were running and jumping and parkouring and not really shooting or killing much of anything, which created this weird walking simulator with a few parkouring challenges element to it. And you were wearing the leaf suit when doing that. This was in 2016. So they're either straight up trying to create name confusion around their own products, or trying to get people to forget about Valley, but they're not doing a good job either way. So, yeah. This is also certainly the danger that you run into, in that we are now increasingly seeing games that were released on PC, not very well received, trying to now be ported to consoles to get a little bit more money, while hoping people forget that they were bad games in the first place. Moving on, The Last Case of Benedict Fox launches April 27th for PC and Xbox One and Xbox Series. It's also available via Xbox Game Pass. This looks like a kind of weird adventure platformer is what they're calling it. Yep. The name Benedict Fox made me think there was some kind of like Sherlock Holmes type character, but yeah, that's not really what this is at all, is it? It's just a platforming adventure game, which, okay. Seems like there's some room for maybe a good game there. A dark fantasy action game called Bleak Sword DX has been announced for Switch and PC, which, yep, I'm always up to give these kinds of games a chance. This has that kind of weird, almost cardboard cutout appearance to it, but with an 8-bit texture on it. That's what The Legend of Bumbo also has. It has this weird cardboard cutout 3D isometric perspective to it, or tilt shifted forced perspective to it. In this case, isometric might be the wrong word. Legend of Bumbo has some major visual problems though. I've seen 2 or 3 stutters. I've been in a visual glitch, soft lock, for as little as I've really played Legend of Bumbo, and for as simplistic as it is, since it's just a match 4 game, there's really no excuse for it to be as poorly polished as it is. Let's see. Atelier Ryza, Alchemist in the End, and the Secret Key details world quests, bonfires, and Ateliers. Check out that article, I guess, if you're interested. At this point, I really just don't want to spoil myself too much around it. I guess it is important to remind myself that this is turn-based RPG content, though, so if I was to actually try and play the Atelier series, it's going to be turn-based RPG and potentially fairly slow. There's very few of those games that I want to play because there are so many of them. Ni no Kuni was the last one of these types of games I played, and that was very annoying, unless I include Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I only got halfway through and then gave up on. Okay, so they did announce Darkest Dungeon 2 launching May 8th, which I guess means my Darkest Dungeon content may air somewhat around that time, although probably still way too late on that. I could try to potentially shift the schedule around, but I don't see a reason to really even take that extra effort. I did not like Darkest Dungeon 1, so I'm not particularly enthusiastic on the idea of a Darkest Dungeon 2. If anything, part of my criticism of Darkest Dungeon 1 is that it probably should have stopped adding content after the first 6 months of the initial launch, and actually maybe even after its initial launch, because it had just been in early access and evolved so much that I think the most people that liked Darkest Dungeon 1 liked it when they were playing it in early access, and the final product you get when you buy it now is just a much more difficult and crazier experience that you're not likely to have a good experience with. And visually, seeing this one screenshot, it doesn't look like you're really getting that much difference in Darkest Dungeon 2. So I would definitely say, unless you played Darkest Dungeon 1 and liked it and actually beaten the game, Darkest Dungeon 2 is a no-go for everyone else. A 90s style action fighting arcade fighting game, Verdict Guilty, is coming to Switch on February 16th and then PS4 and Xbox One soon, according to Gamatsu. And that definitely looks like a 90s style game with these animations. It's like a beat 'em up fighting game. I'm a little surprised we don't have more of these games, because there certainly was a history of a lot of clones of the good games people liked, enough to make an argument that you would see something like this every couple months. But these kind of retro beat 'em up games really only come out once every couple years at most, at least the ones I notice. Moving on, Pocket Mirror Golden Trom Steam Next Fest demo is now available. It's almost not newsworthy to say a demo is now available, but it would be news if you didn't have Steam Next Fest in front of it, so it's news when you do. And there's so little news anyways to talk about at this time. Now is like the perfect time to announce a Steam Next Fest, although you could have definitely done it somewhere January 12th to move it back a little bit more. Grim Guardian's Demon Purge demo is now available also. This is the Castlevania game with the Galgun characters. The problem, particularly with demos too on Steam, is that if people play the demo, they don't have a direct connection to the actual product page of the actual product. So while you sometimes will, or most of the times will have a button to say get the demo now and play it, you don't have a way of seeing the demo's reviews or encouraging people to review a game's demo to give you an idea about whether or not you might want to play the full game, which it's probably fine that doesn't happen, but it does leave people out that don't have time or don't want to waste time or spoil themselves to play the demo themselves, but would like to see the feedback of other people who played the demo to decide whether they want to play the game once it releases on day one or early in its launch, before people would have played the full game and reviewed the full game. Of course, it also opens up a possibility. There's always a possibility that the demos are somehow drastically different than the actual final product, and so a review for a demo that's positive may not mean anything compared to a review the final product. Moving on, Sonic Colors Ultimate is now available via Steam. It was previously an Epic Game exclusive, and so this would be a game to potentially put on the fall list, but you can see it's mixed reviewed. I don't think too many people were super fans of Sonic Colors anyways. Let's see what the reviews are saying. Rail grinding and some set pieces are just broken. I've been playing for just around 15 minutes. I made it from the start to finish without my PC blue screening. Consider me impressed. Still, though, just emulate this instead. It's free and closer to the original. Game still has mono audio, terrible lighting, broken levels thanks to a new Wisp, weird slapped on menu UI. So this is kind of a great example of something that deserves a YouTube short because it's relevant, not because it's good, but because it's being received poorly. Of course, you do get into this catch-22 in which most Sonic games are bad, particularly the PC ports of them. And so, yeah, this being out, there being a sale, that doesn't really encourage me to want to buy it. And then our final Gematsu article is Bati Byteland Overclocked. Demo is now available, which, what does this look like? Let's see. Yeah, what I was talking about is you'll get this, you get sometimes a demo option here, which you could download or add to your library, but it doesn't have its own Steam page, so any reviews for the demo, you just can't review demos. And maybe there doesn't need to be a full review system where you write down what you like or not. Maybe there should just be some stats around the like a thumbs up, thumbs down event or a hyped event. SteamDB plugin gives you like an app ID, so I could go to SteamDB potentially and get some more information, although most of this information does not mean anything to me. It's all very much inside baseball like stuff. Although I guess I could use SteamDB if I just needed to download the images, icons, things like that, pictures, get specific like resolution thoughts. But yeah, you wouldn't get reviews there, certainly. And then if you click on sub, that tells you even less. Alright. So, Spider Queen Cave. Apparently it's been updated because this is back on Steam. And this was one of those games that 2 scenes of bathing during gameplay, which arguably if you're making a game with in which it has even 1 scene of bathing, that's pretty extreme. This is obviously more of a Chinese asset flip horror game. You can see it's mostly negative, so I can just take that off the fall list. Yep, Chinese full audio, and no other Asian languages even mentioned above the fold. You could potentially make a horror game with a Spider Queen, or you could make a lewd game with a Spider Queen, but I don't think you can do both, and you would have to actually put some effort into it and not just try to asset flip garbage. Weekend Warriors looks like it's a mobile port for a fighting game a non-licensed, like, Octagon MMA type fighting game. I don't think there's enough polish there to put that on the fall list. Lost Worlds is, by the looks of it, a asset flip survival game that's mixed reviewed. Tears Rain, Tears of a Goddess, looks too much like a mobile game. Grab list. Oh, everything is blurred, sorry. Well, you didn't really miss much. There, grab list. Wild Seas. I probably need some kind of like audio feedback when it's blurred. I don't know if there would be a specific way to do that. This doesn't look like anything. We still definitely are running into situations where there's a high level of garbage getting put out on a day-to-day basis on Steam. And certainly I guess that would mean that some people would just say, well, all games are garbage. It really comes down to, if that's what you wanted to say in the first place, you could justify that with any poor scientific sampling of garbage games on Steam. But then you could also manipulate the statistics in the exact opposite way and say all games are good by only highlighting the good games. Yep. There is something to be said about the ease in which you make an adult game, or you make a video game in general, allowing a lot of garbage products to be made, where it's fairly more difficult to make a garbage product and get it on the shelves of Walmart or something like that. Here we have our first adult game, Hentai Puzzles Universe. It's just slide puzzles. Honestly, I think I could have probably just shown this anyways. There's no actual nudity on any of these. Yep. But it is in the adult section. $1.79. Says it supports all languages and full audio. It says not contained 100% nudity. Gallery can be viewed with one hand. It's an incredibly low effort adult game. And honestly, even at that though, that's not the type of game that I would censor out or filter out on Steam if I was going to censor out or filter out anything. I'll give this a follow, but not a YouTube short. The only games I'd really censor out would just be absolute garbage. Even something like Aim Expert here, I'd probably allow on Steam, even though it's pretty bad. Here we have what looks like yet another Japanese visual novel only that doesn't support English. Which, yeah. It's a shame that we're starting to see more games not support English, but it's actually a good thing. It would be nice if everything supported English, but if we're seeing Japanese audiences move to PC gaming, move to Steam as a platform, then overall we'll start to see more Japanese games come to Steam. Is my hope, at least. Ars Fighter. It's not polished enough. House of the Soul. I'll give this a follow, but it's probably gonna be nothing. 3D Whack-A-Mole. Does this require VR? Nope. I am still looking for a 3D Whack-A-Mole game. We may not see that many adult games actually at all today, which, if that's the case, then it's been a slow week or two as far as adult games. Love Love School Days. Is this an adult game? Doesn't seem like it. It doesn't even have mature content warning. Is there another game called Love Love? I have no idea what this is. They're saying it's an action roguelike. And it seems like it's probably a horror game, if I was to guess. Endless Fireworks Simulators is not really a game. Cubic Crush is probably too fancy of a Tetris game for its own good. Army War Shooting Simulator. Nope. Alice Running Adventures. Give it a chance. Secret Dimension. Doesn't look like anything. Here we have our next adult game. A Foreign World. It's 3D CGI characters. Although in this case, one of the characters does have angel wings. Straight up nudity in a lot of the things. And then oddly a fox for some reason. Yep, still feels very asset flippy like most of these. I guess maybe the idea is that they're cosplaying or something. Or that they're from a different world. Might be that they're from a different world. Same old 3D CGI adult games. English, German, and Spain Spanish as far as the language, selling for $15.29. Definitely. There is a question whether people are actually buying these games in any number, or if, I mean, you could accuse anything of money laundering, but in this case I'd say I can't make that accusation legitimately. I'd say there probably is some whales out there that buy every single version of these CGI asset flip adult visual novels. And particularly if you don't like the anime art style and that's just not your thing, which there is definitely a lot of people like that, but you do like porn in 3D CGI art style, which I'm not sure there are that many people like that both would hate anime art styles but would want 3D CGI, then you're really not going to have many options anyways. This is interesting. It's a chess themed tower defense game. I'll give that a follow, but as far as a YouTube short, it's not quite visually enough. It would be a hard sell for me to really want to buy this because of just how pixely this is. Sniper Ranger's on the chat saying yellow. Hello, Sniper Ranger. Next we have a game called Weird and Uncomfortable Things Are Happening, which I could see excusing this as just an RPG Maker game, but there's maybe a chance that it's better. So I'll give that a YouTube short. Explore Big World. Looks like it's just an asset flip. Walking Simulator. Ancient Guardians. The Dragon doesn't look like anything. Where'd I go? They accidentally scrolled somehow and moved tabs. Waves of Steel. Yeah, there's a chance that there's a game there. Let's see. Snowboard freestyle snowboarding. I'll give that a short. Utility room, is this like the back rooms concept? Definitely seems like this is just the back rooms, but we made a VR game and called it a different name, and then asset flipped a weird world. Which is funny though, if you just called this Mist, I would be all on it if you gave it a different name instead of tying it into the back rooms. But also, I'd say, if you compared the Island of Mist to the screenshots you're seeing here, there's considerably more on each screenshot on the Island of Mist. This is about the only screenshot that somewhat catches my attention. Maybe this a little bit. But then there's a lot of just empty, nothing screenshots. In particular, here you have a great example of 90% of darkness. Moving on, Billion Bastard Bots. Nope, don't think there's anything there. Spike Air Volleyball. Is this multiplayer only? It says it has single player. Yeah, there might be something there worth giving it a shot at least. A tower defense game. I guess at a certain point I probably should make YouTube shorts around tower defense games anyways. It does seem like me having YouTube shorts coming out at like 4 a.m. Central is too early. So I will, next time I schedule, put it later as far as YouTube shorts. And honestly, at some point my entire channel could be like every couple hours there's a new YouTube short out if it works well. But as that's going, I probably should make YouTube shorts around tower defense games, hidden object games. There definitely have been some categories of games that I personally have said no to and then not put them on the fall list, but are of a level of quality and popularity that I should make YouTube shorts around it, and tower defense games are definitely going to be one of those. Sniper Ranger says Waves of Steel looks like a nice game for warship lovers like Mr. Handsome over here. And then he says tower defense is boring. At a certain level, as a content creator too, it also kind of benefits me to make YouTube shorts around games that people will comment on, whether the game looks like garbage, whether the game looks amazing, whether they love that type of game, whether they hate that type of game. Any engagement is good engagement for me. And I don't want to like clickbait people to the point where I'm just trying to rage bait people into commenting, but it's true. Let's see, mild depictions of fantasy violence and infrequent swearing. So you have this very secret visual novel. I don't know if there really needs to put that on the fall list, but again, probably deserves a YouTube short. This would be one of the ones, another type of game that I usually wouldn't put on the fall list, but should probably make a short around. There's a nice level of visual polish here on this Sokoban box pushing game. Let's see. Rafkus Padron, the Ancient Hero. Very different art style, but I don't think it's quite visually polished enough that I would want to do anything with it. Let's see, Skymont Adventure. Doesn't look like anything. And then that brings us to our GameDeveloper.com articles. So, yeah, weird for Monday that we really didn't see any adult games last week. Maybe 2 on Friday. And today we saw exactly 1 3D CGI normal looking adult game and 1 hentai puzzle adult game, I think is what we saw. So if we don't start to see kind of higher numbers by this time next Monday, I would think that there's a danger that because of the Steam Next Fest, they have pushed all the adult games out and made an emptier playing field so that they could do the Steam Next Festival and the demos and promote other games, which honestly that would be a logical fallacy in the first place. People, for the infinitely small number of people who can even see the adult game section on Steam and have clicked that button to see it, there's really no competition at all there. People looking for adult games are not going to go and buy non-adult games or vice versa. They might buy both or they might buy neither, but the two aren't really affecting each other, not in any significant amount. Sniper Ranger following up saying, you do you, I never liked tower defense. Personally, I don't really like tower defense either. Like, I like Plants vs. Zombies 1, which is technically kind of a lane tower defense game. I like how they do it. And I don't know if I've even really spent more than 5 minutes playing any other tower defense game either. But, you know, when I'm thinking about what I'm making YouTube shorts on, I'm not trying to eliminate anybody other than things that wouldn't be YouTube family friendly or are just absolute garbage. As far as the GameDeveloper.com articles, Crossfire is shutting down in May, over a year after its launch. Stephanie Economow wins the first Game Score Grammy for work on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. GameDeveloper.com having much better headline for their story in that they're actually naming the person who is getting the Grammy versus Assassin's Creed Valhalla's soundtrack getting the Grammy. Because, yeah, it's pretty insulting to have a headline saying, well, we've given a Grammy to a video game soundtrack, not to a human being that created it, because we don't care about human beings. And even in the picture, compared to Video Games Chronicle article, they have an actual picture of an actual lady, which I assume is Stephanie Economow. Although, in all fairness, if this was just a random lady and they got the wrong person, like, even that would be better than just a picture of the Grammy Award. What I'd also like to know, though, now that they've named a person, is what else has she worked on? Let's see. She took home a Grammy for their work on Assassin's Creed Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok, a slice of DLC that Ubisoft described as the most ambitious expansion in the history of the franchise. The new category included talented nominees such as Austin Wintory. This is what I was looking for as the competitors who did Aliens Fire Team. Is that even a game that came out this year? I don't even recognize it. Bear McCree of Call of Duty Vanguard. First name Bear. Interesting. Richard Jacquet for Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy. And Christopher Tin of Old World. And yeah, I could see people making an argument to give a Grammy to Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack. Sniper Ranger is saying he's got to go. He just came to say hi. Hi. Well, thanks for swinging by and saying hi. I know so many streams are often streaming at the wrong time. Although, honestly, I don't know what the right time is. Much better article. I often have to complain about GameDeveloper.com for being propaganda yellow journalism, particularly when they're pushing their ideas and like pro-union ideologies and pro-worker class ideologies. But in this case, they deserve a pat on the back for actually putting details in their article and actually naming people, whereas Video Games Chronicle did a terrible job doing that. Next GameDeveloper.com article, there's a report that Microsoft believes UK regulator will block Activision Blizzard deal. 4 sources briefed on the situation have told the New York Times that Microsoft thinks the CMA will move to block the merger. Which, okay, we'll see what happens. I wonder if the UK, and this is something I think that would probably fly in the UK better than the United States. I wonder if the UK, though, has a problem with doing I assume this is an LGBT flag before they changed it and added a whole bunch of more things to the flag. It's just a rainbow flag. But it's flying at the same height as the... What is this? Union Jack? Is that what they call it? Yeah. As far as the UK's flag, country's flag. Whereas in the United States, as far as I understand, flag code goes, you would only fly equal countries, sovereign countries, at the same height. And if you were going to do a flag for anything else, it needs to fly lower. And I guess you could technically say, well, it's an inch lower or something like that, but it kind of needs to visually be the full width of a flag, at least lower. Now, I don't think there's anywhere as much homophobia, for lack of a better term, in the UK compared to the United States, so that's probably why they're getting away with that, but they probably should do the right thing. Of course, it's probably some underpaid janitor who has no idea about what the flag rules, regulations, or the right way to do things are anyways, that's being paid to put up flags and take them down, so I can't really assume it's that big of a deal, but flying your flag used to mean something. It probably doesn't that much. Arguably, if you're running a business, it's probably better to just not fly any flags ever, anywhere, and just not have flagpoles. Just admit that corporations are soulless entities that don't care about any country or any loyalty whatsoever, and are only looking for money. Corporations really should be flying a flag that just has a big dollar sign above it. That's the only thing that they would claim to have any loyalty to. Moving on, Focus Entertainment will publish indie dev Mad About Panda's next game, which I guess is a announcement that they're going to be a publisher for a game that doesn't seem to even have a name. Overwatch 2 gets its first ever brand crossover with the new season. Blizzard talked about crossing over with different brands for Overwatch 2 and now is getting its wish. Is this supposed to be One Punch Man? Yep, this is the Saitama One Punch Man outfit on. Definitely not Saitama as a character. And honestly, it's not even a good depiction of what Saitama looked like. It seems to be more of a recoloring and reskinning of something that already exists. Because Saitama basically just has generic red gloves. They don't have big padded armored elements to it with yellow on it, and there's no like shoulder thing, unless this is all stuff that was added to the One Punch Man manga after the first 2 seasons of the anime. I don't even think that there's like a zipper in the Saitama outfit. I think it is just supposed to be a one-piece unitard. And arguably, even the color of the cape is too blue. Let's see, are they going to cross over with anything else? Doing a One Punch Man crossover also doesn't make the most sense. Because... yeah, I guess they're working on the 3rd season of the anime adaptation along with a live-action film in development, which a live-action film almost certainly is not going to work for One Punch Man. Let's see. GameDeveloper.com has an article here. Motive devs talk about Dead Space remake changes, giving Isaac a voice. So you have an article here you could read if you're interested. It's a little bit longer than your average GameDeveloper.com article. Although, if you're going to have somebody talk about the changes they do in a remake, almost wouldn't need it to be a video that was like 2 hours long where they covered every single little change. Yeah, speaking of every single little change, I guess it's also worth mentioning that OBS put out a hotfix update version to 29.1, so it's now 29.0.2. Yeah, it was 0.0.1. This visual novel's not relevant enough now that we're doing the follow list cleanup. Match game. Yeah. It's not very relevant either. It's 100% positive though, so I'm going to make an exception and put this on the follow list. Although I may not ever buy it. Cartel Tycoon, mostly positive. Is it in early access? No. So you can put that on the wish list. Cartoon Carrot Heart. It's not relevant. Yep. Playing a game like Legend of Bumbo and then playing a match 4 game is going to really recontextualize the idea of whether or not I'd want to play other match 4 games. This is a weird game, and 20 minutes long, point and click through a short story. It's well received, but it's way too expensive. Well, regardless, I don't consider price when putting it on the wish list. I only consider price when I go to actually purchase things. Yeah, Carnivores, Dinosaur Hunt. Still looking for some kind of good dinosaur game. I'm surprised nobody's hasn't made a like Pokemon Snap type Jurassic Park game. You maybe need the license of Jurassic Park, but maybe don't. That would make a lot of sense. This has been as low as $9 for these Carnival games. I don't think this was particularly a well received game, even as a, I think, Switch or Wii U game. So I guess the question would come down to, is there still relevancy to play a bunch of these Carnival games compared to playing like Wii Switch Sports, which has bowling, which would be a big sale, but not all of these mini games. Yeah, I guess I'll just leave that on the follow list. Carnage Cross. Seems like it's a Carmageddon clone. I think I was halfway through saying something and I lost my track of thought, but I'm not even going to bother to try to pick it back up. Cards with Personality. I heard somebody mention Cards Against Humanity. It's been a long time since I've heard anybody even mention that game. It was fairly popular. I'll give this, I guess, a little bit more time. Many years ago, or it sounded like it was very popular. Cards of Dreaming. I'll also give more time to. Cards of the Dead is mostly positive. This looks like this is a somewhat solitaire based, but not pure solitaire game. Yep, it's been as cheap as $1.99. There is something to be said about shopping based on whether something has been discounted before, too. Yep. Yeah, it was OBS. This is why I'm not installing OBS 29 until OBS 30 is out, is because on February 3rd they put out 29.0.1 and then February 4th 29.0.2. It is often the case in software that people don't notice the bugs or find the bugs until it gets released to the masses, and you want to try your very best to avoid that, but it's pretty impossible to actually avoid that for small and even medium-sized companies that can't afford to have a whole bunch of test builds of computers to test things on. And even if you are a small company like Debian, for instance, it's not super small, but if they want to make sure you're only releasing stable updates, you have to move incredibly slow around that, and most people don't like that either. Alright, so I'm going to scroll down my Twitter feed and see if there's anything new as far as tweets, which increasingly nothing really is happening on Twitter. Yep. I guess part of the problem, I was saying this much earlier in the stream, around why Magic the Gathering people are not abandoning Magic in favor of a new game is because Pokemon, the trading card game, is a little too kid-friendly, and it's taking up a lot of the potential competition spot and attention. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a little too anime and a little too kid-friendly, so it's taking up a lot of attention too. So if you were going to try to make something that was like Magic the Gathering, but not Magic the Gathering, or play a game like that, there really isn't an option out there that's popular enough. Plus, I imagine, even compared to Dungeons and Dragons, the amount you've invested in buying Magic the Gathering cards may be so high that there's a level of commitment you have to stick to, even if you don't want to. The History of the World Part 2 from Mel Brooks, as a Hulu published movie, is coming out fairly soon. The fact that Mel Brooks isn't retired is around. It's a 4-night event on March 6th. It's an original series, I guess, not a movie. Mel Brooks really probably should be retired, and I just don't think this is going to be great for his legacy. Inherently, all the actors and actresses that he would have had in his other movies have either gotten very old or died at this point, so you're going to have this whole second generation of actors and actresses that probably don't really know Mel Brooks and probably are just not going to compare as well as the old actors and actresses. In the future decades, if you were to go through all of Mel Brooks' movies, including History of the World Part 2, it's going to stand out as being several decades newer and just not feel that way. Even the producer's most recent Hollywood movie ran into that problem where it just was not the same feeling as some of his older things, and a lot of the jokes that Mel Brooks did are probably going to be poorly received. That is something I definitely have heard about people complaining, comedians complaining about, is that modern generations of people just will not laugh at anything for fear of being canceled for laughing at something, and they just don't have a sense of humor. Inherently, almost every joke has a victim in which you're punching up or punching down and making fun of somebody. Best case scenario in comedy is to make fun of yourself, but even that doesn't really work. Let's see. Xbox Wire specifically says, tomorrow is Safer Internet Day, and Xbox is reaffirming its commitment to a world where everyone is empowered to have fun within the boundaries they set. Often it's within the boundaries their parents set. Starting today, you can enable Privacy Prodigy, a game-based learning experience from the Minecraft education. Interesting. That might be an article worth reading more into. I don't think Minecraft Educational Edition ever really has gone anywhere, though, as far as an idea. And yeah, inherently, even the school systems and teachers don't really want to protect students' privacies. They want to protect a student's privacy when it benefits them, but they will absolutely violate a student's privacy as soon as it benefits them too. Yeah. So let's look at this article, and then that'll be it for the stream. Played a new Privacy Prodigy game for Minecraft Edition. So it's a game in Minecraft Edition teaching kids about their privacy. Okay. It's a game-based learning experience. Alright, I see what it is now. So it's not any real features or anything like that. You can set Xbox Family app settings in the app, which I'm sure a lot of people don't even know that. So the suggestions here: check in and play with your kids on a regular basis. A lot of parents won't do that, and create a family group and child accounts for your family. A lot of people won't bother with that. And frankly, you have to do all of this before you even hand the console to people. Customize your settings using the Xbox Family Settings app, which I didn't even know that existed. And then visit xbox.com/family for even more information for families. Yeah, arguably, the Xbox is not even where you would first learn to do a settings app and set all of that up. It would almost certainly be the Nintendo Switch. And then there is definitely just an argument to jump from a Nintendo Switch straight to a Steam Deck and potentially a PC gaming. And then you would do something similar, but I don't even think there really is like specific family setting options in Steam. Instead, it's you can have limited accounts and you can make limited lists of games you own to be on that account, but the actual ability to sort by age groups or specific content in those in games is just not something built into Steam, and definitely should be built into Steam. Like, you should be able to just say, show me all the games on my Steam library that are rated E for everyone, and you probably would only get 2 or 3 games even at that. Alright, well, that's going to be it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. There's a bunch of social media links down below. There's also a link to Patreon if you want to support me further, or you could friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.